The country is watching you guys right now. What you're doing is cutting edge. Clustering yourselves around your community, leveraging your strengths, determining your value propositions, using EQ to focus your marketing and your offer. This is cutting edge stuff, particularly when it comes to product development and marketing. So certainly us at the Canadian Tourism Commission, when we're engaged in our marketing and building our tools and hoping the industry will join us in marketing this great country, it's very rewarding to see jurisdictions like yours doing what you're doing. And together with our partners like Marty's organization, Travel Alberta, we brought in about $1.9 billion into Canada's economy. That's just what our marketing and partnership brought into this country. That doesn't include what you guys brought in by virtue of your efforts, but just what the Canadian Tourism Commission does in partnership. And actually, the reason that's important is because international tourist count is new dollars into the economy, right? If it's just a domestic dollar, it's just the same old dollar circulating through the economy. There's no potential for growth in that. But when you focus yourself to reserve at least a little bit of your business attention, a little bit of your capacity on an international consumer, then you've got the potential to bring in a customer that's going to stay longer, spend more money, and in fact, truly grow your region and truly grow your economy. I love this. I love this story. The photocopier industry. They're a classic example of what happens when you don't work together. So here we are. You've got a bunch of professionals, all very skilled people who are responsible for building a photocopier. So what they'll do is they're all responsible for their own component, and they'll build their component. They'll go off and they'll take great pride in building the most high-tech component that they can. And then they'll come back together and they'll put it together. They'll try to build the photocopier. What do you think happens? Nothing fits, right? They can't put the photocopier together. So they've wasted all this time, all this money trying to get this thing to market. And what happens? They get sent back to the drawing board. And the hilarious thing is, what do you think the teams will do? Oh, it didn't fit? Okay, we'll go back to our rooms. We'll try to make it better and we'll bring it back. By the time the photocopier actually does get assembled and get to market, what do you think the consequences have been? The company in its delay has lost market share. It's spent a lot of money needlessly because of that inefficiency. When you think about it, the tourism industry, and there are many jurisdictions across the country, it works in much the same way. And this makes it pretty complicated for travel trade, for example, who are looking for a more consistent way to sell Canada in the jurisdictions within Canada. It makes it more difficult for us communally as marketers because we're all going off in the same direction and we're not speaking the same language, which again, why days like today are so important. No industry can afford to operate like this. Not when we're facing competition like we're facing right now. I can tell you there have never been more jurisdictions out there right now vying for the same tourists that you're trying to attract. And Canada's no less immune. This is what your world looks like in terms of Canada's international competitive landscape. In 1950, Canada was actually second in terms of international tourist arrivals. Second in the world. And that's with the proliferation of air travel. So air travel became more prevalent around the world. 1970, we're still doing a pretty good job. 1990, we fell to 10th place. And I think the reason we fell to 10th place was, of course, there were more airlines than ever serving more new and exotic destinations. Canada didn't really have a strong sense of itself as an international tourism brand, and we suffered as a result. And here we are today, faced with these incredible competitive pressures. Hong Kong is doing better than us. Canada currently ranks 15th in terms of overall overnight tourist arrivals, which is really strange to me. 15th, especially when Canada has the #1 country brand in the world. Did you know that? There's something called the Future Brand Index, and Canada has the #1 country brand in the world. Tourism is actually responsible for about 25% of international people and their perceptions, right? So tourism contributes about 25% to the perception that Canada is the best country brand in the world. And yet, despite having this good thing in our back pocket, the international global travel industry is growing at about 7%. It grew about 7% last year. Canada only grew 2%. So something's not right, something's not working. So the best response that you can possibly muster to these types of competitive pressures is a strong brand. Now, I'm just going to go through a brand. What is a brand, right? Can anybody here tell me what a brand is? Sorry? Nike, yeah. What makes Nike such a strong brand? Well, it's the promise that they make. It is a strong understanding of their value proposition. They're not selling shoes. They're selling the promise of excellence, that you are going to be competitive, that you are going to strive to new heights. That's what they're selling. Nike is actually a tremendous example of an emotional brand, and I'm going to get to the power of an emotional brand in a minute. But a brand is essentially your personality. And these brands often make a promise, just like Nike's. Well, Canada's brand is an emotional brand, and it makes a promise all of its own. Our promise that we're making to international tourists is, if you come to Canada, you can create extraordinary stories that are all your own, right? It's not, come to Canada, do a bunch of stuff, have a great time. It's, come to Canada, fulfill yourself. It's kind of like Disney in a way, right? Disney's not in the business of it's not in the attraction business. It's in the business of fulfilling people's dreams. Really, an emotional brand sells. The nice thing about it is we know that Canada's brand is responsible for 58% of the decisions to choose Canada as a travel destination. So when we ask international consumers, why did you choose to come to Canada? 58% of them said it was because of Canada's tourism brand. So obviously an emotional brand has the ability to draw people in. So I would say that, the next question is, let's get down to brass tacks here. Why is Canada's tourism brand important for you? Well, there's a popular concept in marketing that is, quite often businesses, and you know this, quite often businesses will align with another brand. Probably sometimes that other brand has something you like, but usually it's more established, it's a strong brand. And by aligning yourself with that brand, what happens? You get introduced to new customers. You get introduced to new customers who are already warm to what you have to say. It already makes sense, right? It's like an introduction, right? I know you, here's this person. It's not a cold call anymore. They're already receptive to what you have to say. So that's what Canada's international tourism brand can do for you. It can expose you to new markets. It exposes Travel Alberta to new markets, new customers that are going to come and start looking on Travel Alberta's website, and they're going to start digging into the experiences that Chinook Country has to offer. And that's going to increase your market potential, and that's going to increase the amount of people who are already warm to the value proposition that Canada has to offer. So we're, in its essence, Canada's tourism brand, and by aligning yourself with it, you're guaranteeing yourself more qualified business leads. On top of the emotional appeal, there's another reason Canada's tourism brand is particularly powerful. Canada's tourism brand was built on 3 pillars: Canada's people, its culture, and its geography. But it's really the intersection of these 3 pillars of the brand that make our brand so powerful and emotional, and that's the experience. It's your businesses in Chinook Country that actually make Canada's tourism brand come alive. Because right now, Canada's tourism brand is just kind of like this ethereal idea, right? But you are the ones that give it teeth. You're the ones that show people this is what Canada's all about. And that's why it's incredibly important for the CTC and Travel Alberta and jurisdictions like Chinook Country to be working together, because we can deliver the emotion, but you guys deliver the experience. And that combination of working together is what's going to help us gain market share in the international market. So let's talk for a second about this idea of an experience, because it's not just a word. It's a very loaded term. I can tell you right off the bat that an experience is not a product. An experience is something very, very different. Why wouldn't you just sell a product? Well, first of all, there's a lot of competition out there. I think we've kind of agree on that. But if you're going to be in the international market, do you want to just offer up another product?